Do you swear to interpret from English to Spanish and Spanish to English everything that is said during these proceedings to the best of your skill and ability?
I do. Deborah Danielle for the record.
Thank you, Madam Interpreter, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
This is docket number 22J617.
Este es el caso 22J0617.
I'm going to have people introduce themselves. I'll start with you, Ms. Capone.
Voy a pedir a la gente que se presente. Empezaré con usted, señor Ms. Capone.
Good morning, Justice Blake, Attorney Jennifer Capone, representing Miriam Rodriguez.
Buenos días, Jennifer Capone, representando a Miriam Rodriguez.
And Attorney Capone, is your client the person that's on the phone on the Zoom?
She is not.
Capone, su clienta es la que está en el teléfono en el Zoom.
I'm not sure whose number. I don't
No estoy
recognize that.
segura de quién es ese número.
I don't recognize the number. I
No
specifically
conozco el
told my
número.
client to use the YouTube link.
Thank you for that.
Gracias.
There is a box that says Cosita Valeria.
Sí, eso es mi correo electrónico, señora juez, y mi nombre es Verónica Alvarenga y vivo en el 29 de la Wilmot, señora juez. Lo hice con mi correo electrónico, señora juez, disculpe.
Okay, demasiado rápido, señora. She's talking too fast. The interpreter couldn't get it. I asked her to repeat. Verónica
Alvarenga, mi nombre es Verónica Alvarenga. Vivo en el 29 de la Wilmot, segundo piso, y yo soy la persona que tengo la corte con Miriam Rodríguez.
I live on 22 Wilmot Street on
29.
second floor.
29, miss, 29 de la Wilmot.
29 Wilmot Street on the second floor, and I'm the one that has the case with Ms. Rodriguez.
Give me all I asked was your name.
Oh,
Señora,
Verónica.
solo le pregunté su nombre.
Verónica Alvarenga, señora juez.
Verónica Alvarenga.
Okay. Now there is somebody on Zoom that just a telephone is showing with a phone number of 978-764-5126. Who is that?
Este es el número que yo tenía. Yo tengo con mi
Ma'am,
correo.
please.
Your Honor, it's for the next case.
Paul Mello, I have a
Okay,
Wednesday.
we're gonna take you out of the Zoom, sir.
Okay.
Ms. Alvarenga, please do not shout out. Okay, you wait for me to address you.
Señora Alvarenga, por favor,
Sí.
no diga nada. Espere a que yo me dirija a usted.
Okay.
The
Okay.
way that this is going to work,
La manera que esto va a funcionar,
each side will be permitted 15 minutes.
cada parte será permitido 15 minutos.
The tenant will proceed first,
La inquilina va a seguir adelante primero
and the only person that can interrupt who's speaking is me.
y la única persona que puede interrumpir lo que ella está diciendo soy yo.
I may have questions as you present your case.
Y, excuse me,
I may have questions as you present your case.
quizás yo tenga preguntas mientras que usted esté presentando su caso.
The attorney will not be able to ask you questions.
La abogada no podrá hacerle preguntas.
After the tenant is done,
Después de que termine la inquilina,
I will hear from the landlord's attorney,
voy a oír de parte del abogado del propietario
and the only person that can ask questions of the attorney is me.
y la única persona que puede hacerle preguntas a la abogada soy yo.
The tenant is not permitted to ask questions of the landlord.
Y la inquilina no está permitida hacerle preguntas a la propietaria.
There is no rebuttal from either side.
No habrá ninguna refutación de ninguno de los dos lados.
And where there is right now a black screen with gold writing, there will be a clock that will count down from 15.
Y ahora donde está negro habrá un reloj que contará hacia abajo hasta que cumpla con sus 15 minutos.
After the hearing, I will take the matter under advisement.
Después de la audiencia, yo me pensaré lo que voy a hacer con el caso.
I will then make a decision
Entonces haré una decisión
and you will be notified by the clerk's office.
y usted será notificada por la secretaría.
Ms.
Ok.
Alvarenga, do you have any questions?
No, señora
How we're
juez.
gonna
¿Hay alguna
proceed?
pregunta?
No, señora juez, muy amable por su información.
Attorney Capone, do you have any questions about how we're going to proceed?
No, Your Honor.
Capone, ¿alguna pregunta en cuanto a cómo vamos a seguir adelante? If you, Your Honor, could the
Yes.
interpreter request that you give instructions to the parties so they don't speak over the interpreter and they pause frequently?
Absolutely. So I'm going to remind both of you
Le voy a recordar a las dos
that with the use of an interpreter,
que con el uso de una intérprete
you need to speak slowly,
necesita hablar despacio,
do not interrupt her,
no interrumpa a la intérprete
and pause frequently.
y pause con frecuencia para la intérprete.
Ok.
And if
Thank
there's
you.
a problem, I'll jump in, Madam Interpreter, I promise.
Thank you. Y si hay algún problema, yo me meteré, señora intérprete, se lo prometo.
Mr. Conley, when you're ready, could you put up the 15-minute clock?
Señor Connolly, ¿está listo para empezar a correr el reloj de 15 minutos?
Ms. Alvarenga, it is your opportunity to present your case.
Señora Alvarenga, esta es su oportunidad para presentar su caso despacio.
Ok.
Ok.
Yo vivo en esta casa para 12 años.
I've been living in this house for 12 years.
Yo nunca había tenido problema con la dueña. Yo siempre he arreglado el apartamento con mi dinero.
I
Oh.
never had any problems with the owner. She would fix the apartment with her money.
And then nunca me daba mi renta por 12 años, nomás cuando yo pedí una ayuda con Homebase. Ella le dio recibos a Homebase, pero como teníamos mucha confianza entre ella y yo, nunca me daba recibos.
And
Yo
she would
tengo-
never give me receipts because we trusted each other, and she never gave me receipts.
Yo arreglaba este apartamento. Era como una familia que uno vivía, arreglaba, yo arreglaba con mi dinero, ella nunca me arregló mi apartamento. Señora
Okay,
juez,
I would fix this apartment. I would spend my own money, not hers, to fix the apartment.
entonces de repente ella me llevó a corte porque su sobrina llegó de Miami buscando
And all of a sudden,
apartamento.
she took me to court because her niece arrived from Miami and she needed an apartment.
Entonces vino ella y me dijo que me iba a subir la renta a $2,000 sin darme
And then
una
she came-
notificación.
And told me that she was going to raise my rent to $2,000 without any notification.
Entonces yo tengo un lease que se
I
vence en
have-
el 2028 y yo lo sometí a la corte.
I have a lease and I submitted it to the court,
Se vence en el 2028.
and the lease is over in 2028.
Entonces,
Excuse me,
entonces,
excuse me, ma'am.
Disculpe.
Do
Señora,
you think that you owe any rent right now?
yo no le debo nada.
Usted-
Yo le debo a ella del mes de julio.
Hold on,
Julio.
hold on. You need to let the interpreter interpret my question before you answer. So I'm gonna ask again and let the interpreter interpret. I understand that you understand some English, but we want to make sure we get everything correct. So my
Okay.
question
entiendo que
is,
usted habla algo de inglés, pero hay que esperar a que la pregunta la intérprete antes de empezar a contestar, ¿ok? Queremos
Okay.
hacer todo bien.
Okay.
my question is, do you owe any rent?
Yo le debo a
Pregunta
ella.
es,
Yo le debo a
Ay,
ella.
Hold
Yo
on,
le-
you need to wait for the interpreter.
Oh, okay.
Madam Interpreter, if
espérese,
you could.
hay que esperar a la intérprete. ¿Usted debe alguna renta?
Sí, yo le debo desde el mes de julio hasta el mes de noviembre que estamos ahora mismo, pero yo no le
Yes,
debo
I
todo el
owe
dinero.
her from July until November right now.
Y y ella me dio 2 veces un 30 días noticias sin ninguna
She gave
explicación
you
por
30
qué ella me
days
sacaba.
notice.
Is there
Ella me-
anything wrong with the
Y no
apartment,
sabe-
ma'am?
Ese fue el
Wait for
problema,
the
señor.
interpreter, please.
Por favor, ¿hay algo que está mal en el apartamento, señora?
Ella, yo llamé al City Hall porque ella me apagaba el heater y por eso ella se enojó porque yo tengo mi niña de 10 años y ella me apagaba el switch para que no tuviera heater.
Okay,
Y
the
ella,
interpreter is unable to understand his tears.
Could you let her know that, Madam Interpreter?
Señora, yo no le puedo entender cuando usted está llorando y se está emocionando.
ella me apaga, el apartamento estaba todo dañado y yo tuve que llamar al City Hall y por eso ella me está votando porque yo llamé al City Hall porque yo le dije que no tenía dinero para arreglar el apartamento,
Okay,
que era
stop,
responsabilidad de ella.
stop.
Got it.
Madam Interpreter, were you able to get any of that?
Something about when she moved in, the apartment was a mess and she had to fix it.
Ma'am, it's very important. I need your testimony. I need you to do two things.
Señora, es muy importante, necesito escuchar su testimonio. Me hace falta que usted haga dos cosas.
Okay,
One, I need you to slow down.
okay.
La primera cosa que me hace falta es que usted vaya más despacio.
And two, I need you to listen to the question carefully.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask the question again.
Me hace falta que escuche, que se enfoque en la pregunta que le
Okay,
estoy
señora.
haciendo. Una pregunta de nuevo.
My question is,
Mi pregunta
currently,
es, en este momento,
is there anything wrong with the property?
Sí,
¿hay algo que va mal en esa propiedad?
sí.
Yes.
What is wrong with the property? Slowly.
¿Qué
No
está mal
sirve,
con la propiedad? Despacito.
no sirve a donde yo lavo los platos. El City Hall vino y le dio una letra a ella de warning que si ella no arreglaba el apartamento le iban a dar una multa porque mi
They came and
apartamento.
where I wash the dishes, it doesn't work. And they came and gave her a warning. And if she didn't fix it, they told her they were going to give her a fine.
Ma'am, I don't see you on the screen anymore.
Señora, ya no le veo en la pantalla.
Thank you. When they came from
Está
the
ahí,
city
señora.
and they gave you a list of things that were wrong,
La ciudad vino y le dio a usted una lista de las cosas que estaban mal.
Sí,
were those fixed?
ella
Wait
arregló
for
el
the
pasillo.
interpreter.
Esas cosas fueron arregladas.
Ella
Esas cosas fueron arregladas.
arregló el pasillo
Diga.
arregló el pasillo del apartamento.
She
Y no ha
fixed the hallway in the apartment.
no ha arreglado la ventana y nomás vino a arreglar una cosa en el baño, pero le dijeron de las cucarachas que había una infección de cucarachas en mi casa y
And
ella lo mandó a fumigar.
They haven't fixed the window and they haven't fixed the problem in the bathroom and they have I have an infestation of cockroaches and they haven't fixed it.
Son muchas cosas, pero como yo digo,
A lot of things.
son muchas cosas. Entonces, las veces que hemos tenido corte, ella me llevó a corte a mí sin ninguna razón ni ningún motivo, porque le preguntaron a ella si yo debía algo.
She took me to court with no reason.
Me dio
And they asked her,
me dieron 2 días, ella me mandó dos veces notificaciones de 30 días y arriba dice por qué razón me está votando y ella no puso la razón. Si yo le hubiera dicho dinero,
two notices giving me 30 days and on the top of the notice it says the reason that she is evicting me and it doesn't give a reason.
porque ahora ella dice que yo le debo renta, si cuando me
Why does she say
sin
now
ningún
that I
motivo.
owe her rent?
Porque me quiere sacar por meter a su sobrina.
Because she wants to get me out to put her niece in here.
Ms. Alvarenga, has the city been out to see the apartment since February?
Señora
Ellos,
Alvarenga,
Hold on to the
ha venido a
interpreter.
ver a la persona.
Sí, ellos han
Espere
venido.
a la intérprete.
Uf.
Señora Alvarenga, la ciudad ha venido a inspeccionar el apartamento desde febrero.
Sí, ellos vinieron y me dieron unas cartas y yo las puse al City Hall. Todo lo
Yes, they
archivé
gave me a
en
letter. I
en
took
la,
it to
en
City
la-
Hall,
en la corte. Todo lo archivé con el juez cuando yo fui a la corte.
and I showed it to the judge when I went to court.
Ma'am, because you were talking at the same time as the interpreter, I couldn't hear the answer.
Señora, porque usted estaba hablando al mismo tiempo que la intérprete, yo no pude escuchar su respuesta. Ha
What
venido,
month did they come back?
¿en qué mes volvió la ciudad a ver el apartamento?
Ellos vinieron hace un par de mesecitos. No tengo bien la fecha porque no tengo el papel ahora mismo, pero
I don't know
vinieron,
the date because I don't have the paper right now.
pero ellos vinieron dos veces
But they came
acá a la
twice
casa.
to look at the
Me
house.
me
I'm
dijeron
sorry,
que
Madam
sacara una.
Interpreter, I can't hear you because she's interrupting, so could
I
you let her know that?
La jueza no puede oír a la intérprete porque usted está interrumpiendo. She said that they came twice, but she doesn't remember exactly when.
Did they come after you had gone to court?
La ciudad vino a inspeccionar después de que usted había ido a la corte.
Sí, parece que ellos vinieron y todavía dijeron que hacían unas cosas que arreglar porque no fumigó.
Yes, they came and they said that there were still some things that needed fixing.
Y parece que le dieron a ella un papel a la señora Miriam.
And it seems like they gave the woman a paper.
Was it when it was cold out or when it was warm out that they came back?
Ellos regresaron a ver el apartamento cuando hacía frío afuera o hacía calor.
No, estaba haciendo calor, pero la policía vino muchas veces a mi casa porque ella me apagaba el heater y los heaters no servían cuando hacía mucho frío. La policía venía y discutían con la señora Miriam y le decían que no me hiciera eso, que yo tengo niños, que prendiera, y la señora no lo hacía. Y yo siempre le seguía pagando su renta.
Okay, something about how the police would come with Miss Miriam. And she continued paying the rent. Señora, es que está hablando demasiado seguido y demasiado rápido y tengo dificultad. Ellos vinieron cuando hacía calor. They came when it was hot. Yes,
Okay.
they came when it was hot.
I really want
Creo que
to,
sí. No me
ma'am?
acuerdo. Yes, sí.
Señora,
I really want to understand your case, but it's very hard because you're not letting the interpreter interpret and explain to me what you're saying. So please.
señora, yo verdaderamente quiero entender su caso, pero usted no le está permitiendo a la intérprete la oportunidad para interpretar, para que yo pueda saber lo que usted está diciendo, porque se tira a hablar y la intérprete no le puede seguir.
So I want you to answer just what I'm going to ask you. Don't add anything. I really want an answer just to this one question.
Solamente quiero que usted responda únicamente a la pregunta que le voy a hacer, que no añada nada más. Escuche la pregunta y conteste nada más la pregunta.
At the trial,
Durante el
in
juicio,
reports,
vino a la corte.
did you give the judge from the city?
¿Usted le dio al juez la carta de las que le había dado la ciudad?
Sí, yo la archivé. 2 veces archivé
I
una
filed
carta.
it, the letter.
One or two?
¿Una carta o dos?
Yo creo que fue una carta creo que archivé. No,
I
sí,
think
creo
it
que
was
sí.
one letter. I think I filed one letter.
And was that from the first time the city came in February?
Y esa carta era resultado de la primera vez que vino la ciudad
Sí.
a inspeccionar en febrero.
Sí.
Yes.
When do you plan to pay the July through November rent?
¿Cuándo piensa usted pagar la renta que debe entre julio y noviembre?
Ella no lo quiere coger. Ella me dijo
She
que no lo
doesn't want to
coge.
accept it.
el juez de aquí de Loren le dijo y ella dice que no, que lo que quiere es que yo me vaya.
She says she doesn't want to accept it and all she wants is for me to leave.
So have you given her a check and she has rejected it?
Ah,
Así que usted le ha dado un cheque y ella lo rechazó.
no, dígale a la juez que yo no le voy a mentir porque yo y ella hemos discutido en la corte porque ella hasta me ha querido dar golpes en frente del juez en la corte. Y yo no me le he puesto cerca a ella porque ella me ha insultado hasta en frente del juez aquí en Loren en la corte.
She insulted me here in front of the judge in Lawrence, and that was all the interpreter was able to catch.
Entonces yo no le he dado ningún cheque a ella, pero le preguntaron que si
So I
ella
haven't
acepta mi
given her
renta
any checks.
y ella no quiere.
When you used to
I
pay
tried to
rent,
give her my rent, she doesn't want it.
when you used to pay rent, how did you do that? By cash or by check?
Cuando usted pagaba la renta en el pasado, ¿la pagaba en efectivo o en cheque?
Yo le pagaba a ella en cash.
I would pay her in cash.
You have
Siempre.
about
Y-
30 seconds left, ma'am, so I'm gonna ask you to sum up and tell me what you want me to do on this case and why.
Me quedan como 30 segundos, señora, así que yo quiero que brevemente me diga lo que usted quiere que yo haga.
Dígale a la señora juez que la respeto y la decisión que ella tome es la decisión que yo voy a respetar, pero que es la decisión de ella. Ella es
The
una
judge,
juez.
I want you to tell the judge that whatever decision she makes is the decision I'm going to respect.
Okay, so now we're gonna switch to Attorney Capone. And Ms. Alvarenga, could you put yours on mute?
Okay.
Ahora vamos a ir a la abogada Capone y señora Alvarenga, por favor, ponga su micrófono en mudo.
May I begin, Your Honor?
I just
Oh,
want,
sorry.
there we go.
Aquí
Okay,
vamos.
and Attorney Capone, again, slowly so that the interpreter can interpret for Ms. Alvarenga. When you see the blue clock come up, you may begin.
Thank you.
Y le recuerdo, señora Capone, que por favor hable despacio para que la intérprete pueda interpretar y cuando vea el reloj azul, usted puede comenzar.
Good morning again, Justice Blake. I did not represent Ms. Rodriguez in the housing court. My argument is going
Yo
to be
no
based
representé a la señora Rodríguez en la Corte de Housing.
primarily on the information that I've been able to get from the housing court, including the judge's findings.
Estoy basando mi información en la información que pude conseguir de parte de la Housing Court y las decisiones del juez.
I think it's important to note that Ms. Alvarenga did not file a written response to to Ms. Rodriguez's complaint for possession of the apartment,
Y es,
nor
excuse me. Es importante que la Corte sepa que la señora Alvarenga no fichó una respuesta a la demanda que le puso la señora Rodríguez.
nor does it appear that she raised defenses at the trial on September 14th of 2022.
Ni parece que ella presentó ninguna defensa durante el juicio el día 14 de noviembre.
Ms. Alvarenga now is raising a number of factual defenses that have not been previously raised.
Y la señora Alvarenga ahora está sacando varias cosas que no había presentado anteriormente.
She did tell the judge at the trial that she had been paying rent in cash, but the judge did
Ella
not
sí le
credit
dijo
that.
al juez durante el juicio que ella había estado pagando la renta en cash.
How
In
much does
order-
your client say is owed in rent?
¿Cuánto
32.
¿Cuánto piensa su cliente que se le debe en renta?
$32,000.
$32,000?
Yes,
Did you say 32,000?
Continue.
And that was prior to the judgment that was entered. As of November 1st, the use and occupancy was supposed to be paid of $1,800. So it would actually now be $32,000 plus $1,800.
Y eso comenzando el día 3 de noviembre, después del juicio, la renta se estaba supuesto pagar $1,800. So now the total amount is how much?
Just give me 1 minute. That would be $50,000.
Y ahora mismo $50,000.
Yes. No. Yes. No, I'm sorry. I made it 18,000. I apologize. It would be 33,800, I believe.
Okay.
Ella
Sorry.
debería en este momento 3,380, 800, 33,800.
Ms. Alvarenga said that she's tried to pay and your client has refused. Can you respond to that? Wait,
Yes,
La
that-
señora Alvarenga ha dicho que ella ha tratado de pagar, pero su clienta ha rehusado aceptar el dinero. ¿Usted puede decir algo sobre eso?
That is inaccurate. Miss Rodriguez
Eso no es cierto.
is suffering a significant financial hardship based on the lack of
La
payment in
señora
rent.
Rodríguez está padeciendo unas dificultades financieras muy significantes.
Both her and her husband have had to get second jobs in order just to pay their mortgage. There has not been an
Ella y
attempt
su
at
esposo
all.
han tenido que buscar segundos trabajos simplemente para poder pagar la hipoteca.
There has not been an attempt at all by Miss Alvarenga to pay rent. They
No ha habido ningún atentado por parte de la señora Alvarenga para pagar la renta.
they would gladly take the money at this point because
Y-
she owes them that money.
Ella
Counsel,
aceptaría el dinero porque ella les debe ese dinero.
counsel, did your client respond to the February letter from the city outlining areas that needed work?
Yes,
Señora
and
abogada, su clienta respondió a la carta de la ciudad diciendo que el apartamento necesitaba obras.
I apologize to the interpreter. I keep responding too soon.
The interpreter is unable to hear you.
I said I apologize to the interpreter because I keep responding too soon.
Dice que le está pidiendo perdón a la intérprete porque contesta demasiado rápido.
They did respond to the letter. They made any repairs that they could. They do
Ellos
not have,
respondieron a la carta, hicieron los arreglos que pudieron.
they have trouble accessing that apartment because Miss Alvarenga has changed the locks.
Ellos tienen problema en entrar en ese apartamento porque la señora Alvarenga ha cambiado los cerrojos.
She has refused them access at certain points.
Ella en ciertos puntos se ha negado a permitirlos entrar.
And I think it's important to note that in that report from the city, they do note that the occupant herself is failing to maintain the apartment in a cleanly condition, and that because of that, there is
En la ciudad misma toma nota de que la señora Alvarenga no está manteniendo el apartamento en buenas condiciones o limpias.
there is a pest infestation problem.
Hay una infestación de lo que sea, de cucarachas, de los problemas.
Counsel,
Yes,
Has your client received anything from the city after the February letter?
not that I'm
Señora
aware of.
abogada, ¿su cliente ha recibido algo después de que recibió la carta de febrero?
I could check
Yo puedo
if
chequear.
We can only do what
Right.
happened in the housing court.
right. So no,
Solamente podemos dedicarnos a lo que pasó en la corte de housing.
the answer to your question would be no, Your Honor.
La respuesta a su pregunta sería no.
What is your client asking me to do?
¿Qué es lo que quiere su cliente que yo haga?
My client is asking that Your Honor find that there is no credible appellate issues for Ms. Alvarenga that would make it likely she would succeed on appeal.
La
Order her
clienta está pidiendo
to pay the
que
appeal
la
bond.
corte encuentre que no hay. Okay, could you start over, please?
My client would ask the court to
Mi
find
clienta le
that
pediría a la corte que decidiera
Ms. Alvarenga does not have a likely success on appeal,
que la señora Alvarenga no es probable de ganar en cuanto a su apelación,
that she be ordered to pay the appeal bond that was ordered in the housing court,
que se la manden, que pague la fianza que le mandaron que pagara en la corte de housing,
along with the use and occupancy of $1,800 a month
junto con la renta de $1,800 al mes,
while she continues with her appeal.
mientras que ella prosiga con su apelación.
Is there anything else that you would like me to know?
I
¿Hay
just would
algo
like,
más que usted me quiere decir?
I would like to,
Go ahead.
sorry, point to Your Honor that, excuse me for 1 second, that there is an
Yo le quiero
expired,
invitar a su señoría
there's an expired lease in this case. So Ms. Alvarenga was a tenant at will.
el contrato de alquiler está vencido.
She mentioned having a lease till, I think, 2028. Is
Ella
there such a
comentó que
lease?
ella tenía un contrato de alquiler hasta 2028.
Yes, so it's interesting. It wasn't addressed specifically in the judge's decision, other than
Hold
the
on,
judge.
hold on.
Eso no decidió el juez en la decisión que él hizo.
It was not specifically addressed in the judge's decision, other than to say that there was an expired lease, but the lease that Ms.
Hold on.
Alvarenga,
El juez no dio más detalles, solamente dijo que el contrato de alquiler había vencido.
the lease that Ms. Alvarenga submitted to the court that says 2028 is an altered document.
El contrato de alquiler que la señora Alvarenga presentó a la corte es un documento que ella había cambiado.
Anything else, counsel?
No, Your Honor.
¿Algo más, señora abogada? No, su señoría.
Thank you both. Many, many thanks to Madam Interpreter.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I know
Gracias a
it's
ustedes
never
dos.
easy.
Never easy.
You will, the parties will hear from me in writing, and Madam Interpreter, again, thank you very much. This hearing is concluded. Thank you all.
Gracias a todos. Las partes oirán mi decisión por escrito. Esto concluye esta audiencia. Gracias a todos.
Let you know, Mr. Mello.
All right, we're live.
Thank you, Mr. Conley. And the clock has started, so Mr. Mello, why don't you start? I may have some questions as we go along, but please begin.
Good morning, Your Honor. I am Paul. I
morning.
am the appellant. I appealed the order of the lower court since I testified in the trial. In the way of the background, the owner of the husband who passed away promised that he would do repairs to the home. This is the issue of the appeal today.
Can you tell me
It is that the defense-
approximately when he promised to make those repairs relative? Because I think your trial was in October. So when did he promise to make the repairs?
It was a few years ago. He came to the house twice, and the first time I told him about the problems. He said he's going to take care of it. The second time he came by, he was very aggressive with me, and I asked him not to come back again. And then nothing ever action. Actually, I have a picture of him fixing the fence once, and then I haven't seen him since. And then he passed away apparently in December or January of the past year, and that information was withheld from me, and I didn't know that. And now his wife knows about I don't know if she knows, but I told about the repairs at the trial, and still nothing's been done about it. This is why we're here at the appeal.
So how much do you owe in rent?
I'm not sure what the amount was. I'm sure Mr. Burnett will give you an answer on that.
Well, right now I'm asking you, so if you don't know, do you at least know what the monthly amount of the rent is?
Well, he put 1,800, but I owe nothing because there's no value of the house at the moment.
He
That's
meaning
what
the
I'm trying
judge,
to get to.
the judge put use and occupancy of 1,800. But I think my question is, what do you think your rent obligation is? Not what the judge said, but what you think it is.
Maybe 100, 200, if that.
A month?
Yeah.
When you say if that, where are you coming up with that number? I don't see that number anywhere in the papers.
Well, I don't think there was any paper, but I can't afford anything at the moment because I'm low income.
No, I definitely understand that. And I know that the judge found that you were indigent. I'm not challenging that at all. What I'm trying to understand is, what do you think, not what you can pay, but what do you think the amount of your rent obligation is to stay in this property? What had you been paying for rent?
I haven't.
When's the last time you paid rent?
When I last paid the mortgage, because it's my home, I was paying mortgage. I was
So
never paying
since
rent.
the foreclosure, you've paid zero?
Correct.
And when you did own it and you were paying the mortgage, what was the monthly mortgage payment?
1,400.
Okay, that's helpful. Please continue.
I'm sorry. As the defendant has violated multiple health codes and violated the habitability issues of the roof. That is, in the cold days it leaks, the windows are broken, and the stairways and multiple plumbing and electrical problems. Is the current value of the home should be zero. In fact, Rebecca, also the late husband, has not repaired anything. Therefore, the appellant respectfully requests that the Honorable Court to vacate the order of the lower court judgment and remand the case to the lower courts, subtract all the health code violations, then make a fair, adequate determination.
All right, I want to make
special
sure of
purpose-
one thing, Mr. Mello. This appeal hearing today is not about the appeal of the judgment in the eviction proceeding or the post foreclosure proceeding. That appeal, if it's been properly filed, will proceed along the ordinary course. Today's hearing is solely on the appeal bond order that the judge entered on October 24th, where he set the bond at zero, but ordered you to pay $1,800 a month. So we're here on a very, very narrow issue. And the question for me from a legal perspective is, do you have a non-frivolous defense? And that's what I want to sort of talk with you about. What is your defense to the case?
Hold on a second, please. Oh, the illegal eviction, because of the foreclosure of the house. But I'm still litigating at the moment on a different court.
So you're challenging the legitimacy of the foreclosure.
Correct.
On what basis?
They did not give me the proper notification of the foreclosure.
Okay. You also, in your last couple of answers, made some mentions about the conditions of the home. What information did you present to Judge Del Puerto about the condition of the home?
I testified with I sent pictures and of all the broken stuff and all the stuff that needs to be repaired to the judge, but nothing didn't seem like it was taken into consideration.
What do you mean you sent it to him? Was your trial on Zoom or was it in person?
In person.
So did you submit them? Did you give copies of the pictures to the clerk to give to the judge? I'm a little bit confused.
I believe I did. I mean,
Well,
like,
you were there, I wasn't, so did you give
I
the
know I sent it to
judge
Burnett
pictures?
and a list of violations as well.
No, I'm still on the pictures. You're going way too fast for me.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
looking at everything that the housing court sent to me for this appeal, and I don't see one photograph. So I want you to, if that's wrong, I want to know because I want to be able to see the photos. So I need you to think back. This was last week in October. It wasn't that long ago. Did you give the judge pictures of the conditions?
No, I apologize, Your Honor. It was a list of violations. Not
Okay,
pictures.
and was it a list of violations that you created, or did it come from an inspector in your town, or what was that? What did that look like?
Myself.
So, okay, did the town ever, or the city, I'm sorry, ever come out and do an inspection?
Not yet.
Okay, with the list of conditions that you say are problematic, when did you file that? When did you submit that to the court, roughly?
Might have been a couple of weeks before.
All right, so it's
trial?
sometime this fall, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna look for that while you continue to present your case, because I may have some questions about it, but please continue.
Social circumstances. Her husband passed away, promised the repairs, but the wife completely ignored the results of the defendant and appellant. Respectfully request the Honorable Court to vacate and remand full consideration of the problems with repairs.
Okay. I am looking at the paperwork from the housing court. Did you file an answer to the summary process?
Yes.
Okay. And on your answer, did you include the condition of the home?
Hold on 1 second, please.
Sure.
No, I did not.
Okay. All right, I don't see the list of conditions. Now, it could be here. This is over 200 pieces of paper here. And I promise you that after the hearing, I'll go through it one more time. But if you have it in front of you, could you just list for me the conditions on that paperwork that you said that you gave to the court?
Yeah. So the roof has a leak. The fence that goes between the two houses, and me and my neighbor has fallen down for the third time. The steps that going to one of the entrances of the house, the handrails are broken. The gutters are not there. Electrical problems. The plumbing is leaking in the basement. Waste matter. Some mold. Everything's all the appliances are either out of date or not working. Sometimes mice.
Did
To name
any
a few,
of
I
these
guess.
conditions exist before the foreclosure?
No.
And so what month or year was the foreclosure?
I'll say maybe
Roughly.
20, maybe 2019 to 20.
Okay. So is it your testimony that from that time, over the course of 2 years is when the roof became a problem, for example?
Yes.
Okay. And can you explain the fence again? Did it fall down or is it about to fall down? I wasn't sure I heard you correctly.
What was that? I'm sorry.
The fence, did you say it had already fallen down or was about to fall down?
Like I said, I have a picture of the deceased fixing the fence the first time, and then it fell down the second time, and I fixed it, and now it fell down for the third time.
Okay. So right now the fence is down.
Correct.
All right, you still have about 3.5 minutes. I want you to make sure that you've look at your notes and make sure you've told me everything that you want me to know about this appeal bond hearing.
I'm all set. Thank you very much.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Mello. I'm going to ask you to put yourself on mute. And Mr. Burnett, I'm now going to hear from you when the clock starts. You may begin. Sean, whenever you're ready. Go ahead, Mr. Burnett.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just one very quick point of clarification. I think the document Mr. Mello was referring to that he filed with the court is document number 48 that lists the.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Right. And the clerk had captioned that as a proposed exhibit as it
Okay.
was right before the trial.
That helps. And no photos, right? Mr. Mello acknowledged that.
My memory is yes, it was a list as he pretty much as he described.
Great. That'll help me find it quicker. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. Well, very. I think I'll be pretty brief, Your Honor. Appreciating that this is a de novo review of Judge Del Puerto's findings and his order with respect to the fixing of the appeal bond and the use of occupancy payments that he ordered. My client, who succeeded her late husband, who passed away from COVID last January, has been carrying the cost of this property for the 2 years plus since the summary process action was filed, almost exactly a year ago. I think it was filed November 19th, 2020. 2 years of property taxes, other carrying costs. Apparently,
so did they buy it at auction and then Mr. Mello was still there when they bought it? So they bought knowing.
I believe they bought an REO from the
Okay.
bank shortly after the foreclosure sale. The bank had actually initiated a summary process action, which pending briefly, and then they sold it to my client, who then initiated a new summary process action.
But your client knew that Mr. Mello was there at the time of the purchase.
That's correct. He did.
Okay.
As you've probably seen from your initial review of the transcript of the trial, and in your further review after this hearing, you'll see that this issue of the condition of the property came up. Mr. Mello raised that. I believe it also came up at the hearing, the bond hearing, hearing where Judge Del Puerto entered this order. And what I had asked Mr. Mello is almost exactly what Your Honor had just asked. When did these conditions arise? It was established on the record that Mr. Mello had lived there since about 2003 exclusively. There were others who had lived there with him at various times, but he had had exclusive possession all the way from 2003. And it was established in the course of the colloquy at the trial that these conditions didn't exist when Mr. Mello was living there. And they gradually arose during that time period that he's always had possession of the property. Yet he was blaming my client for the fact that these conditions exist. Yet he was the one who allowed the property to deteriorate, apparently, and for these things to arise. My client never had access to the property. I've never seen a photo myself of my well, I'll say my former client. repairing the fence. I've heard this. I've never seen a photo of it. He may have not. I don't really think it's relevant. The fact remains that he was never granted access to the property. So even if it were his responsibility, and then his wife's succeeding responsibility to maintain this property, they were never granted access to the property to do so yet.
Could I ask you more of a technical question though about this, which
Certainly.
is that in your papers below, I believe you make the argument that the so-called conditions defense isn't applicable here because your client is seeking possession only, right? And you cite Deutsche National Bank for that proposition.
That's correct.
But notwithstanding that, and I understand that legal argument, notwithstanding that, the judge did order use and occupancy, which is in the nature of rent. And so does that affect your contention that a conditions defense is inapplicable here?
I still say it's not applicable, Your Honor.
Why?
Well, I hadn't briefed that. I wasn't expecting that question, unfortunately.
Sorry.
But the prior counsel who initiated this action had initiated it as a non-payment of rent case. Their possession has always been at issue here. Obviously, chiefly it was a summary process action. The non-payment of rent, I believe the theory that the original counsel had was laboring under was that there was some understanding that there was going to be rent paid while Mr. Mello was living there. He wanted to continue to live there after the foreclosure and after my client had purchased the property. My client was going to use this as an investment property and would simply be looking for a tenant nonetheless. My client did send what he styled as a rental agreement to Mr. Mello, which was introduced as an exhibit in the trial. Never received a penny, but at all times, this really was a possession action, stemming from a post foreclosure.
So your client and Mr. Mello never had a lease agreement?
They never had a signed lease. No, they did not.
Okay. Anything else? You have about 9.5 minutes.
Yes, Your Honor. Just again, briefly, in looking at a fair balancing of interests here, again, 2 years of property taxes footed by my clients. Mr. Mello apparently hadn't been paying his mortgage for quite some time because he was foreclosed upon. I know there were a few bankruptcies that were filed to try to stay the foreclosure. I don't know how many mortgage payments he had missed, whether it was months or years, most likely years, as it does take a while in Massachusetts for a foreclosure to get from inception to sale. And then you've got over 2 years of no payments to either to the bank after the foreclosure or then to my client after my client purchased the property. So my client has suffered an irreparable loss of all of this time value of the rental income that she's been deprived of and her husband prior to her. That's not what the legislature intended to be the case, where you have an eviction, a housing court judge that affixes a use and occupancy order. Obviously, that's done to try to prevent that irreplaceable loss from continuing as it had continued all through the pendency of the trial. And I think it's noteworthy that there was a motion filed by original counsel that was never acted upon, probably because of the pandemic and the moratoriums and various things that ended up stalling this case as well as others. In last November, asked that motion be put forward and we have a hearing to establish a use and occupancy order. That order was granted in December. Use and occupancy was supposed to have been paid from January of this year on until we had the trial back in September. None of it was ever paid. So in addition to essentially living there for free for years, at least 2+ years since the foreclosure, as well as however long before that Mr. Mello hadn't been making his mortgage payments, he also was in violation of the court's order to make $1,800 a month use and occupancy payments pending trial. All Judge Perito did was simply extend that based on the evidence that we had put forward to convince him of that number being the appropriate fair rental amount for the property. He just simply continued that in this post-trial, this post-judgment order regarding use and occupancy. I don't think that any analysis or any review of Judge Del Puerto's analysis on the fair balancing test would indicate otherwise. Just very simply, he'd never made any payments. So my client hadn't paid the bank for a long time. My clients footed the bill for property taxes, carrying costs of the property, and a mortgage. And
So what happens next?
They're there for free.
This appeal, let's assume this appeal goes forward. Your clients can't do anything, right?
Well, they can't get an execution if the appeal in chief goes forward. And I think also noteworthy, Your Honor, is the fact that Judge Del Puerto found that it was oddly worded in his order, but he found that the basis of the appeal was frivolous. At the hearing and at the trial previously, when asked about what the basis of the appeal was, Mr. Mello again brought up these condition defenses, the condition of the property. And I think that Judge Del Puerto simply applied his findings from the trial, which were that all of these defects supposedly arose during the time that Mr. Mello owned the property and possessed it exclusively, even after my client had purchased the property. So if that is his only defense on appeal, I agree, it's a frivolous defense. My client was never granted access to the property. Apparently, if he did make an initial repair of the fence, he was never granted permission afterwards. And that was also discussed at the trial.
Has his wife, you're the substituted party here, has she asked to access for the property?
No, I don't believe she had. I think her husband had, and having been refused, he simply just stopped trying to get access to the property. I should say, having been refused access and also not receiving any payment while suffering the carrying costs.
Right.
He focused his attention on the eviction at that point, since obviously this was costing him a great deal of money and he wasn't earning anything in exchange for it.
Is there anything in the record as to whether the utilities are being paid?
I don't believe it was put in the record, Your Honor. No, I know that I discussed property taxes, that being a significant expense. Quite frankly, I don't know who's paying the utilities. I don't believe it's my client. I can offer that. I believe Mr. Mello is paying the utilities, and which I guess makes sense because he still has possession. My client has a mortgage. My client's been paying the property taxes. That I know was established on the record.
Okay. All right. I don't think I have any additional questions, but if you want to check your notes and make sure you said everything you wanted to say.
I believe I'm all set, Your Honor. Thank you.
Great. I thank you both, Mr. Mello and Mr. Burnett. This was a very helpful hearing. I will take it under advisement and you will hear from me soon. Thank you both.